Oh, there you are, Peter.
Hey there, watchers. Today's episode is going to be a little different. Jeremy's wife is pregnant with their first child, and he needed to take today off to help her out. So this episode is going to feature some special guest hosts. Our sound producer, Jake, is filling in for Jeremy, and also my daughters, Rhian and Lily, are here to give their thoughts on today's movie. Speaking of, today's film is a 90s classic that has captured the hearts and imaginations of young and old alike, featuring the masterful directing of Steven Spielberg and a legendary performance by the late, great Robin Williams. So hang on to your marbles, all you lost boys and girls. It's time to fly to Neverland for 1991's adventure fantasy, Hook. Welcome to the Midnight Watch Podcast, the show where we discuss classic, cult, and modern classic movies. I'm your host, Jeremy. Oh, so weird.
I'm
used to Jeremy's.
We gotta make bloopers or something.
I'm Jeremy. We're all Jeremy.
I'm your host, Josh Baruto, and here at The Watch, we try to review movies that are at least 10 years old and see what kind of impact they made or are still making on culture and the film industry. And just to give fair warning, we are heavy on spoilers here. We rate these movies in 4 categories. Number 1, the level of impact and success it had when it was released. Number 2, how relevant is it today? Number 3, our own personal enjoyment of this movie. And number 4, is it a midnight watch? Well, that's kind of a lot to go through by myself without my usual co-host. But I want to formally introduce our sound producer, Jake Colvin. Jake, welcome to the talking part of the show.
What's going on, guys? Glad to be here.
Very awesome to have you here. And normally you're behind the scenes and making Jeremy and I sound amazing. So it's cool having you here up front at the mic.
It's not that much, but yeah, I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to be here.
Awesome. And then I want to also welcome my 2 lovely daughters, Rhian and Lily. Thank you, ladies, for being on the show today. I'm super excited to have you here.
Me too.
So,
Jake, do you have some facts to get us going with?
Yeah, I got a couple things. I just want to make it straight right here that this movie is about fatherhood and about being a neglectful father. And that, for me, hits home, being that I came from a lot of that. And then I am a father now of a little boy. So, these kinds of things that are going on in this movie are going through my head all the time. Of
For sure.
what kind of dad I want to be. So laying that down, also it's just really cool that Steven Spielberg, he was going through that exact process before he directed this movie, and you can really see it in the movie that he really put that feeling of what he was going through directly in the movie.
Yeah, I know I guess earlier he turned down, or he was going to do this movie earlier, like 10 years before, and then was, I think, about ready to have his first child and decided he didn't want to start in on a new movie and then miss out on raising his kid. So that was definitely something fresh in his mind going into this movie.
And I'm sure, because I think he'd been planning to do this since 1985. He knew that he wanted to do it. But I'm guessing maybe somewhere along the way he kind of, I don't know if other people were influencing him or what, but it was supposed to be oh man, what kind of movie is that? A sing-along movie?
Oh, a musical.
It's supposed to be a music. Yeah, it's supposed to be a musical. It's supposed to be a musical, and I think that's why the original pick, or the one that the person that wanted to be a part of it, was Michael Jackson. And I think had it gone like the musical route, then maybe Michael Jackson might have fit the bill. But I think maybe Spielberg was really panning over the whole fatherhood thing and wanted that conflict of, a man questioning himself and rediscovering his inner child was more of the vibe he wanted to take on it. So by having Robin Williams in the role, you really get more of that internal battle of, someone finding their inner child and then dealing with their demons that they've created or had going on throughout becoming an adult and dealing with adult stuff.
Yeah, he's good at being a kid, so.
Right. We all knew that Robin Williams is good at that part. So and then you see him do the kind of the bad guy role in the beginning of the show or the movie, and kind of being the bad father. It's just like, man, it's crazy.
Yeah, it was brutal.
Yeah,
to see rough. That. So like you said, it was directed by Steven Spielberg. Screenplay was James Hart, Malia Scotch, Marmo, I think that's what it was. And then also, I think I'm missing a name, but I think Carrie Fisher was also an uncredited writer in this movie. I think she was was brought on to help with Tinkerbell's dialogue.
Right. Yep.
That name sounds familiar. Carrie Fisher.
That is Princess Leia.
There's a few Star Wars things going on in this movie.
Right. And then as far as the
Did Steven Spielberg? Who was that?
No, John Williams scored the movie, and he also did the scoring for Star Wars.
Yep, and he did Harry Potter.
Yeah.
And
He's my guy.
You get all that pretty big orchestral vibes with some horns ringing in the back here and there.
Oh yeah.
There's so much of that, especially in the beginning of the movie. Like when it was just really tearing it up throughout that first 30 minutes.
Yeah, that man's a legend. He is one of the best film composers, I think, of all time. Maybe the GOAT. I might stake my name on that.
I would agree with you on that. He's the GOAT for sure.
The goat.
Right. And then obviously starring Robin Williams as Peter Pan, Dustin Hoffman as Captain Hook. Let's see, we have who's a couple other ones on here. Bob Hoskins.
He was really great, man. I think he will forever be the best Smee that there was.
He's amazing.
He did really good in that movie.
Which sadly he died the same year that Robin Williams did.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
And then Gwyneth Paltrow is obviously she's a big name now. Back then she was just a kid. She plays young Wendy when
Pepper Potts.
Peter comes back. What?
Is that Pepper Potts?
Yep, Pepper Potts.
Pepper Potts.
From Iron Man.
And then, of course, the lovely Julia Roberts as Tinkerbell. So that's some of the big names. Oh, and then Rufio, played by Dante Bosco.
And don't forget Granny Wendy's McGonagall from Harry Potter.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
That's a huge one. Yeah, Maggie Smith.
Daddy.
Maggie Smith, yep.
I know. That was a big one. So, yeah, the budget for this film was $70 million, and the box office worldwide total was $300.9 million. So
Not surprised.
did all right. Though at the same time, it got really mixed reviews. Like the critics weren't that happy with it.
Why?
Which was it kind of scored right in the middle, if not a little bit less. But yeah, so it's we'll come back. We'll circle back around to that when we talk about the movie a little bit more. So why don't we jump into the synopsis in case there's any listeners out there who have no idea what the movie's about. I kind of feel like you'd have to be living under a rock to not know what this movie is, but no judgment here on the Midnight Watch podcast.
Judgment.
All right, Lily, you want to help us out with the first part, and then Ryan, you can take the second half.
Yes.
Here we go. Oh, and as always, brought to you by Wikipedia.
Successful San Francisco corporate lawyer Peter Banning is unaware that his workaholic lifestyle is straining his relationship with his wife Moria and their children Jack and Maggie, even though he loves them dearly. As the family prepares to fly to London to visit Moria's grandmother, Wendy Darling, Peter is distracted at the office and misses Jack's baseball game. In London, Peter, Moria, and Wendy attend a charity dinner in Wendy's honor, leaving Wendy's old friend Tootles and her housekeeper Lisa to watch over the children. When the group return, they find the house vandalized, the children missing, and a ransom note written by Captain James Hook. Peter involves the authorities, but Wendy insists that only he can save Jack and Maggie, claiming that Peter is really Peter Pan. Peter sadly refuses to believe this, and while drinking in the nursery, he encounters Tinker Bell, who uses her pixie dust to bring him to Neverland. Tinkerbell drops Peter into Hook's pirate haven, where Peter is discovered after seeing Hook displaying his children to his pirates. Surprised to see how weak Peter has become, Hook challenges him to fly and rescue his children, but then prepares to execute him when he fails to fly and reach the hands of his children. Tinkerbell persuades Hook to release Peter instead, promising to bring him back with all his skills for a climactic battle in 3 days. Peter is then taken to the Lost Boys, who have been led by Rufio, following Pan's absence. The boys mock Peter at first, but eventually recognize him and train Peter while encouraging him to use his imagination to restore some of his abilities, much to Rufio's annoyance. Meanwhile, Mr. Smee suggests that Hook that they turn Peter's children against him. This tactic does not work on Maggie, but Jack is swayed due to his father's recent broken promises. Hook then has the pirates play a game of baseball, which Peter spies on while trying to steal his Hook.
Dismayed to see Jack take to Hook as his father figure, Peter forces himself to remember that he is actually Peter Pan and discovers Wendy's treehouse, where she and her brothers had stayed. Inside, Tinkerbell helps Peter recollect his lost memories of how she took him to Neverland as an infant and his adventures with the Darling children. He finally recalls that he frequently returned to see Wendy after the Darlings had returned to London until Wendy grew old. Peter then stayed behind after falling in love with their granddaughter Moira and subsequently lost all memory of Neverland before being adopted by the Banning family in America. Recalling the day of Jack's birth, Peter finally finds a strong, happy thought that restores his power to fly, bringing him back as Peter Pan. Rufio turns his sword over to him in reverence. The Lost Boys celebrate the return of Peter Pan, and that night, Tinkerbell professes her long-repressed love for Peter with a kiss, only for Peter to be reminded of his love for his family. Pan and the Lost Boys fight Hook and his pirates the next day, and while Peter rescues Maggie and the pirates surrender, Rufio engages Hook in a duel and is killed. With his dying breath, Rufio tells Peter he wishes he had a father like him, which causes the onlooking Jack to come to his senses. Jack reconciles with his father, and Peter duels Hook and defeats him, whereupon Hook is devoured by the taxidermied crocodile when it very briefly comes back to life. Tinkerbell takes Jack and Maggie back to London, and Peter appoints Thudbutt as his successor before leaving after them. Peter awakens in Kensington Gardens and sees someone resembling Mr. Smee sweeping up some empty bottles nearby. Tinkerbell appears and bids a tearful farewell to Peter before departing. Reuniting with his family at Wendy's house, Peter decides to change his life and devote more time to his family. Peter hands Toodles his lost bag of marbles, which Thudbutt had given to Peter earlier, whereupon Toodles joyfully sprinkles himself with the pixie dust inside and flies out the window. Peter tells Wendy that his adventures are not yet over, as he and his family watch Toodles fly off to Neverland.
Very cool. Thank you, ladies,
Thudbutt.
for that wonderful job. I never realized that was his name.
I didn't
I guess,
either. I had no clue what it was talking about for a minute.
I mean,
I loved him because he's like the cutest, but like I never knew that was his name.
Thudbutt.
yeah, for sure. I mean, I don't even. Did they ever say his name in the movie? I don't feel like
think
they did.
they do.
I feel like they just made that up. It's like insert name here. What about Thudbutt?
I mean, it kind of makes sense where he like folds his legs up and it's like cannonball and just like starts rolling. Maybe that's why.
Thunderbutt, not Thudbutt. Thunderbutt.
Well, it has kind of a 90s, I don't know, like early 90s kid nickname.
Definitely not 2000s
No.
name for sure.
No, I don't think so.
2000s
Okay.
would be like Chopstick.
So this is what Jeremy and I forget to do every time. But let's all say what the first time we saw this movie was. Lily, when was the first time you saw this movie? Or what was your first experience watching it?
I honestly don't remember, but I remember I've always loved the movie, and I just feel like I grew up watching it. And It's one of my favorite movies, and it's got so many memorable quotes. So that was very hard to pick one to use at the very beginning. But he is the most memorable.
There we go.
There you are, Peter. Yeah.
How about you, Rye?
I don't remember exactly when I watched it, but I think Mammy, because I used to borrow like VHSs from Mammy, and I think I picked that one. So I was like, oh, it's Robin Williams. I love him. So I took that home and watched it.
I don't think your 5-year-old self said, oh, it's Robin Williams. I love him.
Well, I love Robin Williams for a long time. So I wouldn't be surprised if my 5-year-old self was like, oh, I know him. I like him.
I think you were a little older than 5 when you started watching it.
Yeah, I was definitely older than 5.
And Jake, how about your first experience with this movie?
I mean, I don't totally remember the first time, but I do know that when I was younger and I watched it, I just remember really love seeing that dynamic that Robin Williams plays once again, where it's just like, man, this guy's like really lost in his business and his devices and whatnot, and then you find him discover his inner child again. I definitely connected that with my relationship with my father, and that was like a huge reason of why I ended up loving that movie so much.
So and even as a kid, that totally grabbed you?
I remember feeling that. Yeah, I remember feeling that being related to me for sure. And and just the adventureness of all of it after that, on top of that, just like the sets and everything. I just loved that vibe. It was really cool, all the props and stuff, the costume design. I just thought it was a really pretty movie too at the time.
Yeah.
This time around, the more and more I watch it, the more I start seeing little things here and there, but I still love the movie.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, mine's similar to you guys. I was a kid when I first saw it. I think I was 12 when this came out, or 11. And I didn't see it in theaters, but I know when it came out on VHS, I think I watched it at a friend's birthday party. And that was the first time I got to see it. But yeah, it blew me away. I remember thinking this was such a cool movie. I don't know that I was super familiar with... I guess I knew who Robin Williams was, but I don't know that I had seen a whole lot of his other movies at the time. Because pretty conservative upbringing. We didn't watch a whole lot of modern movies.
Was that one of the homeschool movies you were actually allowed to watch?
No, I wasn't allowed to watch it.
Taxidermied crocodiles, man, eating people. Not allowed.
It's not Christian, man.
It's probably too much bad language in it, probably.
People getting stabbed too.
Yeah, no, there's so violent, but that's why I was at a friend's birthday party, so gotta be polite. Gotta watch the movie.
Parents don't need to know.
That being said, watching it this time around, towards the end with the battle and seeing the kids, fling balls all over the ground and squirt, paint at the grown-up men, I'm just like, I don't really think this is taking these guys out, but it seems slipping like they're slipping on bananas.
Right.
I just found it, very, very peachy.
Yeah, it's very like old school Nickelodeon.
Oh yeah,
like with slime and just crazy stuff happening.
The chicken egg launcher thing.
Definitely.
Yeah. That type of stuff. But I remember when it came out, I remember there was like a video game. I remember there was a whole huge toy line that came out.
Whoa, wait.
So I just remember for kids, it was a pretty big deal. What?
They had a video game?
Yeah, they had a video game on Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis.
Can you still get that?
Probably on eBay.
You
could probably find an old version of it. And then Jeremy actually texted me his thoughts about the movie because he watched it also, because we originally were gonna do it together. So this is what's interesting is Jeremy didn't watch this movie until like this week. He didn't see it when he was a kid. Yeah, he totally missed out on it, which shocked me because I saw it as a kid, and then I had you girls watch it as you were growing up, and so it's just kind of been a part of my life.
Poor Jeremy.
Poor Jeremy.
All right. Okay, get ready for this. Brace yourself. So Jeremy says, I tried to watch this movie years ago, but this was the first full time watching it. It was 20 minutes into the film before I was intrigued when the hook cut on the wall led up to the children's room. But it was over an hour and a half before I started to enjoy the movie. He was very surprised. I know. Yep. Hang on. Hold on. Says, when you have Robin Williams, Steven Spielberg, and Peter Pan mixed together, it should have been a no-brainer of a blockbuster. But this is the first Robin Williams movie where I was legitimately bored almost the whole time. Hold on.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Hold on. Wait. Let's let him finish what he was saying here. He says, honestly, this is a terrible movie and should have been rewritten majorly before shooting.
So you want Michael Jackson to be
I gotta go. I can't.
He says, sorry guys, but the heart wants what the heart wants. Don't hurt me.
I'm glad he was very honest about it, and I can
totally
understand where he's coming from,
that's really why he's not here today.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why.
I don't even got time for this.
He was ashamed that he was going to get torn down by his nieces.
Well, I'm actually super excited because generally on this show, we tend to feel fairly close on how we feel, how we like movies or dislike movies. We're usually pretty similar in our taste. This is the first time where I feel very strongly one way and he feels very strongly the opposite way.
Of all the cheesy movies y'all watch, this is the one that has the most disagreement of all the really cheesy movies.
Okay.
I don't know, guys. This is history. This is a Midnight Watch podcast first.
Okay. So we're talking like people like Doctor Strangelove fighting like people talking about we've got bigger guns than you. No, you don't. Never even shooting a shot. And you guys like, oh yes, this is like the best movie ever. Like, yes. Mwah. And then we're over here talking about an actual cultural masterpiece. Totally pulling this out of my butt. But and then we're all like,
well,
it didn't keep me interested. It's like.
So the funny thing is, going back to the reviews, when this came out in, when did I say, 91. So when this came out in 91, all the like top movie reviewers gave it a very mediocre, if not a poor review.
Mediocre?
Yeah. And even now on Rotten Tomatoes, which is where they still, you guys know what that is, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Where'd my little thing go? Even on Rotten Tomatoes right now, it rates at a 29%. So that's pretty low, which is surprising.
Ridiculous.
But
I'm not speaking
good news.
My face is like melting and like.
I know.
I'm sorry.
Lily's face is like so much shock going on right now. You can't see it. But anyways, but the audience
cracking my childhood.
Audience score though rates it at a 76%. So it definitely shows that even though the critics didn't care for it over time, it's still grown in popularity. But at the same time, we also got to look at it had a budget of 70.
That just make fun of movies because that's all they want to do.
Nobody cares about what the critics think.
Nobody cares what the critic says.
But remember, this movie had a budget of 70 million. It made 300 million, so it did really, really well money wise.
I guess
obviously a lot of people.
Happiness, I guess.
A lot of people went and watched it, but the studio still kind of considered it a bust. But that being said, it's got a huge cult following now. I mean, we're not the only four that really love this movie. I was really surprised that Jeremy didn't like it, but
so get your pitchforks ready because I'm going to kind of side with him here just a little bit.
I've got a torch.
So, all right.
Hold on. I gotta hear what you gotta say now.
If it wasn't for the father-son dynamic and I think Spielberg's feeling of what was going on with him and how he kind of put that into the movie, I can see how I definitely wouldn't have been into it, at least this time around, if I watched it for the first time. Just because I felt like there wasn't a lot of character arcing as much as I would like to see, at least nowadays with my mindset and how I view stuff. Like I was thinking a lot of the time while I was watching this movie, like, man, this would be really nice redone as a series where we could get to see things pan out longer over
really
time.
Flesh out the characters.
Because the whole montage of him becoming Peter Pan, it was kind of slow in some ways, but then like as soon as he learned how to fly, it was like, boom, you're Pan. Him learning how to sword fight didn't really take a long time to come around. And even watching the sword fighting scenes were very cringeworthy for me. Like they were lacking dramatically.
That's one of the things the critics really, ripped apart.
You could see it, but it still kept it.
Movies because they can.
It still kept it it still made it like a fun movie, but I mean, as an adult watching it, I'm like, yeah, they could have really hashed this out a little bit better.
But see,
so I totally understand that point of view. But like I said, the father-son dynamic still makes me love that movie. I feel that the whole time.
What do you got, Ryan?
But then there's adults watching it, but they're grown up, you know. And then there's kids watching it, where
it's like, oh my gosh,
not saying
thing in the world.
Yeah, not saying that adults can't have a big imagination, but as a kid, when you're watching this, it seems like it's awesome having like a child mindset watching that. Like, I think that could be a difference too. Like, if the critics were children watching this,
They'd be
like,
yes.
that's a fair point too. Yeah, I think it definitely works. I do completely agree with Jake. If it wasn't like, well, let me start with, as a kid watching this movie, it definitely, the absentee father part probably didn't quite stick with me as much as I was caught up in, the color and the action and energy and whatnot, which for the time was, appropriate. It wasn't that goofy. Obviously, if that's how I watched it now as an adult, I think I totally would have been with Jeremy and been absolutely bored if it weren't, like Jake said, for the strong father angle that's happening. I mean, that's the meat of this movie. So really as a father and as an adult and as a father, that is still just so, punches me in the gut every time I watch this.
Right.
But yeah, you take that element out of it and it's
boom. It's nothing. Yeah.
It's nothing. So I totally think it is two things. And I think that's why when I was a kid, I loved it. You guys are younger and you love those other elements as well. And there you have it. So.
I did notice, though, when I watched it again, that I remember it seeming so awesome. Like, all the CGI and, well, not even necessarily CGI, but all the, I don't know what you call it, but watching
Special
it again.
Effects.
Yeah. Watching it again, I was like, oh, it's really not that great. Like, it's really bad. Like, Peter Pan's probably laying on a green table while he's flying, like.
Oh, yeah.
But,
well, you're right. It's actually, there wasn't really a whole lot of CGI. It was a lot of, like you said, there may be a green screen, a lot of actual, most of that film was shot in giant studios, giant sound stages. So it really was very old school in that regard.
Oh, yeah. And I love that vibe too. Like, I love that vibe, but now adult self also just kind of like sees so much of that, it's hard for me to even enjoy the story too sometimes. So I was like,
you can get lost in the lack of special effects or.
For me, I really enjoyed this movie because, again, I really like it. But I did have one question, and this was me just picking out like anything that like confused me. And so it's probably gonna sound horrible because I'm horrible at explaining. But here we go.
Give it your best shot.
So if Peter Pan got to Neverland as an infant, and you never grow up in Neverland, when he first meets Wendy, he's like a teenager. And so it's like, when he goes to see Wendy, he's not going to age like 15 years. This isn't Jack, wrong movie. Like, how?
How does he grow up from being a baby in Neverland?
Yeah, to become a teenager. My theory was that, like, you can grow up to a certain age and just stop growing.
Or maybe he just did that much traveling from Neverland to, I don't know, reality, the real world.
Right.
He was doing a lot of window opening or going through windows. And I'm
but
sure
you're saying
every time
when
he came through, he aged.
But you're saying before the first time, Lily, from when he was a baby to when he first started leaving Neverland?
Yeah, when he like came to see his like parents or something, and then he flew into a window, and then like Wendy was there.
Right. So the first time he left Neverland to see Wendy.
Yeah, he magically becomes like a teenager. I guess like you don't want like a little baby flying around and like.
Right. Well, I think that's a good enough reason why maybe you grow to a certain point. Like the epitome of childhood is probably in that 10 to whatever age of innocence, right at the edge of the age of innocence, right before becoming a full-blown teenager or a teenager that's trying to be an adult. Yeah.
Another thing was that I'm a big person that loves reading books, and there's one book by Liz Braswell. It's a twisted tale where like the tales are like a twisted, but it was called Straight On Till Morning, and it was what if Wendy first went to Neverland with Captain Hook, and it's an amazing novel. And I read it. Sissy read it. I just really think it really got into the nitty gritty of because it had a lot of things I never thought of. It described in the book how the pirates are grown-up children. They're grown-ups, but they're children. Because in the movie they were talking about Hook was mad because he didn't get his lore when Peter Pan first came, and so Tinkerbell's oh, let's take advantage of this. But so yeah, I was talking about how they're playing with guns and it's how
how
so
kids would adults as with the mentality of kids. How
You're stealing my notes. I was gonna say that. Wait a minute.
Oh, sorry.
It's all right. We talked about it beforehand.
See, that's the thing. That's the secret with podcasts. When you're going to be on a show with other people, you can't tell other people what you're going to talk about because then it's not fresh. Did you have something, Ryan?
I was just gonna say that too. That the pirates were acting like grown-up children with the whole boo-boo box in the beginning, where Captain Hook's like, "Ooh, you're the one who doubted me. Put him in the boo-boo box," and then he starts.
Boo-boo box.
Yep. And then he starts throwing a temper tantrum and starts sobbing. I'm sorry. And then they just stick him in the box and they're throwing the scorpion. They're oh, boo.
Right.
And they're having acting like little kids.
So
right. Well, they're legitimately torturing him.
Crazy.
Yeah,
crazy
while
thing
they're
about
actually torturing him, they're when little kids are playing together and one kid is doing something wrong, they kind of. We don't want to play with you anymore. We're just going to stick you in a crate with some scorpions and,
Pretty rough.
Hardcore bully.
Yeah, hardcore bully. What were you saying, Jake?
So, fun fact about that scene. Even as a kid, I remember seeing that pirate he walked up to and just being like, man, something's different about this guy. It turns out that pirate that they put in the boo-boo box was Glenn Close, wearing a bunch of makeup and a fake beard. I was like, what? No way.
I know. Finding that out that totally blew my mind.
It
Wait,
made
who?
so much sense to me because I'd always thought that pirate looked weird. I'm like, why does he look like he just looks different? Something looks off.
Right.
I couldn't ever figure it out.
So, girls, Glenn Close was, if you remember the live action 101 Dalmatians, do you remember that movie?
Barely, but yeah.
Barely. Well, Glenn Close plays Cruella de Vil, if I remember correctly.
Yep.
Wait,
a girl?
Or?
Yep, it's a woman.
It's a woman.
Yeah,
So that
she's another
pirate was
famous
actually
actress.
a girl?
Yep. A woman was cross-dressing as a man, being that pirate that got thrown in the boo-boo box who did that.
Right.
I was going to say, because I always, growing up too, I was like, that one looks funny. They look funny. Now that you mentioned that, I noticed they look weird. It was a woman.
It was a woman.
So do you remember, or Jake, you were going to say something else earlier about another Star Wars twist as far as the cameos go.
Oh, with Carrie Fisher in the kissing scene with George Lucas after Peter gets flown away, after he gets knocked out by Tinkerbell, who is, kind of deviously, has
carrying him away, wrapped up in that blanket. And remember the dust falls down on that couple that's kissing.
While they're kissing.
Maybe.
Well, when you rewatch the movie, as I know we will.
Look for that
On the bridge, yeah.
Yes, on the bridge. Yeah, that's George Lucas, who was the director of Star Wars, and Princess Leia, Carrie Fisher. And then another one too.
Whoa, that's cool.
The police inspector that shows up to take down the information about the crime of the kids being kidnapped.
Yeah.
You remember that part? So he is a famous musician named Phil Collins.
Okay.
Who sang the songs and wrote and sang the songs for the Tarzan movie, the animated movie. You'll Be in My Heart and all that. So you guys know
You'll be in my heart.
That's it.
That's him.
So that was him.
So cool. So many Easter eggies.
There's a lot.
There's a bunch of them. There really is. A lot of people were doing stuff
I
around
noticed
this movie.
because I just finished reading the Hunger Games series. On the airlines is Pan Am, which is the place, the Hunger.
In Hunger Games, that's the name of the country.
Yeah, that's the
right.
name of the country, Pan Am. And I was like,
And
but at the same time, it's also
the Banning
Pan,
family was
like
flying
Peter
on.
Pan.
Yeah, it's like Pan, like Peter Pan.
Well, they
And
were
it's
flying on
also-
Pan Am Airlines, is what they were flying on, which was a real airline company that sadly also, the year that Hook came out, that airline ceased to exist. I guess they went bankrupt and closed.
Where's my parachute, Jackie?
That was actually
Right.
I thought that was the daughter's best parts of the whole movie was her showing the drawing that Jack did, and then later, out of the kindness of her heart, making a parachute for
It's a
Yeah.
hug.
Peter.
I made
Yeah.
you a hug.
She's so
Parachute.
sweet.
Yeah.
I know.
Which, and I think I showed you girls. I know Jake, you saw it too when we were talking about it the other day. But that little girl, like, she really grew up. I was really
Yeah.
surprised to see what she looked like now.
I don't remember that.
Oh, you don't remember?
No, I don't.
No, she's very beautiful. And then
Almost
Jack,
like a Barbie doll. Like,
yeah, she's very good looking. And then Jack grew up and is
Daddy? Okay.
not so good looking.
He's a normal dude.
Normal
A
dude.
normal dude.
Oh my gosh.
oh, and I noticed something
What's that?
multiple times in the movie where, like, you know how everybody kind of has that self-conscious little tick they do when they're stressed out or excited or, well, the thing that Peter does, even as an adult, is he stands and puts his hands on his hips with his legs spread like Peter Pan. Like he does it when he's scolding his kids or he's stressed out and he does the Peter Pan pose, like,
Just looking at something and then they like
Just-
show it, like him, and it's like,
which I never noticed that
Nice
watching
catch.
it until this last time, and I was like, hey, he's doing the Peter Pan pose, like, just
Right, subconsciously.
self-consciously, yeah.
Showing us, the viewer, that he truly is Peter Pan, and he needs
Right.
he needs to remember.
Exactly.
so many little details just put together
And
One-
then,
into a tapestry of the arts.
and the hook on the nursery window, like
Yeah.
the lock
The
on
latch,
the nursery
the door
window.
latch, or the
yeah.
window latch, yeah.
It looks like Captain Hook's hook.
I
Dude, I
love the
realized that
mural.
when I
I
was,
love
like,
the
a little
mural in there
kid.
too.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
mural
ever since, like, I
was
saw it.
amazing.
I loved that mural.
Great. Yeah, it was
Wait, what
very
mural?
well painted. Very well
In the
painted.
nursery, remember the mural at, like, the top of the wall?
Oh yeah, yeah.
like the
Captain
details.
Hook and the rowboat.
And just the Peter Pan scenes, like, who did that? I wanted, like,
Right.
It's like,
or
can you
even
come
in
over?
the movie.
You know.
even in
One
the
more,
movie,
another
who did
little
that?
fun fact: when they're all in the airliner flying to England, and the pilot, the captain, comes on the speaker and says, "This is your captain speaking." That is Dustin Hoffman, who plays Captain Hook. That's his voice saying, "This is your captain speaking." So you
Wait.
get that little play. Yeah.
Oh, he's
so
the
it's
captain, like Captain
of the
Hook.
airliner.
Okay, guys, I'm sorry.
And he's
again,
also
but
Captain
we
Hook.
only have 10 minutes left. I'm sorry. We only have 10 minutes left to finish the podcast.
All right.
Sorry.
Do you guys have much else to say, or we can try to wrap this up?
I don't. I said my questions. Said my quotes.
Okay. Ryan, did you have anything?
A couple things where I thought it was funny that when Granny Wendy's talking to Peter, trying to persuade him that he is not Captain Hook, that he is Peter Pan.
Right.
Well, she does say, Peter, you've become a pirate. Because he's, like, grown up and grumpy and, like...
Right.
But
She
then
says it in a little McGonagall way. Peter, you've become a pirate.
And then she also is, like, showing him illustrations of himself as a kid. She's like, oh, so handsome. She's like, and she, like, still obviously kind of has a crush on him, even though he's, like, a grown man and she's, like, this little old woman. Like, she's
Old
still...
and yucky.
Not
Harsh.
old and yucky.
Ooh.
But
All right.
she's like caressing his face and it's like, oh, I remember. And then he's like, Granny Wendy. And she's like, oh, sorry, dear. And just kind of pats his cheek. It's like, that was a long time ago. I was
Right.
like, that was awkward but funny.
Part of me wonders, like, because you never age in Wonderland. Wrong movie. In Neverland, like, when was he born? Like, how long?
I know.
Like,
Well,
is he, like, from the
somehow he
21st
was-
Or, like, from the 21st century. No. From, like...
Well, that's
the
what they allude
17th
to
century?
in the movie, was that he was born here in our world and then somehow was taken to Neverland as a
From-
baby.
Tinkerbell.
by Tinkerbell, or
Tinkerbell.
she found him. I don't know. He's a foundling, which is babies that just end up places, I guess. I don't know.
Where'd you learn that?
Any last thoughts, Jake?
Yeah, the last thing I'd really say that stuck out to me the most, or a lot, that kept resounding like a thing, like it was a vibration that just kept happening throughout the movie. It was the fact that he keeps running into women that are not his wife, that in ways try to seduce him, and whether it was Wendy or whether it was the three maids underwater, that kind of reminded me of Sirens from "O Brother, Where Art Thou?" The Sirens that were singing a song. Like, I got that vibe so hard. They were seducing him with, and I thought that too. I was like, yeah, they're giving him some air, but then it's just like you see like the way like it's going down. I was like, yeah, they're just like totally seducing him, and he's got to get out of here, and then he ends up leaving. But you just see it with other women throughout the movie too, that they profess their love to him in some way or another, whether it was talking about memories of back in the day, or something, and he keeps going back to his family each time. So that was something that I really noticed this time through that I never really paid attention to before.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, guys, we're short on time here, so let's go ahead and wrap this up. We're going to go ahead and rate this movie on those 4 categories. So as far as the level of impact and success it had when it was released, Jake, what would you rate it based on what we know about the movie?
I'll put it about 6.5, 7.
So we'll give it a C plus kind of a rating.
Yeah, C plus, B minus, somewhere around there.
I would agree, considering how the critics were kind of harsh on it. So yeah, that's probably fair. How about you girls? What do you want to weigh in on that?
I would give it an A, but that's my personal enjoyment. So.
Well, that's personal enjoyment, right? But for when it came out, what do you think? How do you think it rated on an A through F scale?
Oh, when it came out, like the first time.
Yep.
I mean, I don't know. I don't think I was born when it first came out.
I'll just stick with you guys because I think.
Yeah, I'll stick with you guys. I wasn't there.
I think you know what you're talking about.
Oh wow, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, and then how do you feel like it does today?
Definitely feel like it's
how relevant
better.
do you think it is today? Jake, what do you think?
I think it's super relevant as a story. I mean, like I said, I've picked up on a lot of extra things as a man, as a grown man, and as a father that I never would have noticed as a child. Mm-hmm. So, but as far as other than that, as visuals and whatnot, I mean, I guess props and stuff are coming back now, so that's like a cool thing to have real sets and whatnot. But this
practical effects.
This was a very Disneyland kind of set, so if it came out today like this, it might just be a little bit too basic for people to really connect to. I can't say that it would really stand out that well.
Right. Yeah, I think as I don't know, I guess as a modern cult classic, I would definitely give it, I'd say a B. Because I think I feel like most people that I talk to about it, other than Jeremy, I feel like most people have pretty positive thoughts about it from when they were a kid, and it was something they enjoyed, and then they still at least have a nostalgic vibe for it, if not the relevance of the story hitting you as a parent. So I would give it a B. How about you girls?
I mean, again, my personal enjoyment for this movie is like.
We'll get to that one. We'll get to that one.
Okay.
I think it's definitely gotten more popular because most adults that I've talked to know what I'm talking about. But then, sadly, a lot of kids my age, when I bring it up, like, oh, hey, have you seen Hook? They have no clue what I'm talking about.
Okay, and then let's get to personal enjoyment. Here's the big one. Jake, what do you rate it? Personal enjoyment.
I'm probably going to give it an A just because, man, I love this movie. As simple as it keeps getting in many ways for me, I still love this movie. And I watched it, most of it with my son, and he sat and watched it. He watched most of the whole movie. So, he loved it.
That's good for a 3-year-old.
If you can get a little kid to sit through the majority of a movie,
it must be good.
Even parts that I was thinking were going to be a struggle for him, he just kept, the colors were really getting at him. And especially towards the end, all that chaos, that was fun.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yes. All right, girls. Lily, personal enjoyment. Here's the rating we've been waiting for.
Like beyond A+. It's
Oh my goodness.
the best movie that I remember. I mean, we've seen it and be like, oh, it's like every time we're looking for something. Like, I've never been hooked out. I've always like, sissy, I'm bolted out. But like, I've never been able to not enjoy it.
To overwatch it.
Gotcha. How about you, Ryan?
Watch it.
I'd say an A too. It's really good because Robin Williams.
A?
Yeah. No, I also give it an A. It definitely hits me in the feels nostalgically as a kid, and then also as a parent, big time, a father in particular. All right, guys, the big final question: would you consider this a midnight watch? Yes or no?
What does that mean?
Would you, if this movie came on in the middle of the night, and like in the middle of the movie, would you sit up and want to finish the movie, or if you knew it was coming on, would you want to watch this movie?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
100%. Yeah.
I mean,
And a
as
yes
kid,
from me too.
I could see it coming on at work too, working late at night, and it coming on and be like, oh yeah, this is cool.
Right.
So that's one that's interesting at any point, and
Every scene
jump,
is
you could jump in at any scene and be.
There you go. All right, guys, that's about it. And we're going to wrap up today's episode with that. If you would like to check out this movie, me and the girls own this one. And Jake, I think you rented this on...
I didn't. It was on Prime for me, but I don't know.
It was on Amazon Prime.
Yeah, I don't know if that was through Showtime or not, but it was just playable for me.
Awesome. So yeah, go ahead and check it out. It seems to be streaming on either Prime or Showtime. And thank you guys for helping me out with Jeremy taking the night off to be with his pregnant wife. So thank you so much. It's good to have you guys. We'll have to do this again sometime.
Yes.
And
I was waiting for you to ask me. Do you want to come on the show?
Well, I really appreciate it. Thank you, guys. If anybody enjoyed this episode, we'd love it if you shared it with your friends or anyone you would like to share it with. Please hit that subscribe button. We'd love a 5-star rating if you're listening on Apple Podcasts. We are on Stitcher, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and just about everywhere else you can get your podcasts. Hit us up on social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and you can email us at themidnightwatchpodcast@gmail.com. So thank you, everyone, for listening. Have a great week. And as always, keep up the watch.